sports is all about, professional sports is all about.
And you know we don't sugarcoat anything here on First Take. So, Max, what do you say? Is it smarter for the Eagles to keep or to trade Wentz?
Is this a trick question? Get rid of him if any sucker will take him. Look, you think it's an accident or a coincidence that the two teams we keep hearing about are Chicago and Indy, right? Why? Why is that? Because DeFilippo's in Chicago, his old quarterbacks coach. He got promoted. He's the passing game coordinator. And Reich in Indy, who's, also was on that Doug Peterson coaching staff. Those are the only two teams that seem to be interested in Wentz right now because both guys believe, DeFilippo and Reich, that they can get in there and get what's good out of it. But both guys, reportedly, have been talking about we have to, tear it all down and build the mechanics ground up. I warned everybody about this, and I disagree with Jaws. Look, he's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. I get it. But I really disagree with Jaws about Carson Wentz for 4 years had a great career. No, he didn't. 1 year. He was great. He was great 1 year. MVP conversation 1 year. The next year, he wasn't as good. He was still good, wasn't as good. And so on. And obviously, Stephen A., well documented, not this past season, but the previous season, second half of the season, when everyone's like, oh my God, Wentz is so great. What did I keep coming on this show and saying? He's not great. In fact, he's regressing. It was all the signs were there. I kept pointing it out. This year didn't happen in a vacuum. All of a sudden, boom, he was no good. It started, you could see it halfway through last year, decline. And instead of taking accountability, taking stock of himself and working on the things he was screwing up, no, everyone was telling him how great he was. He believed they didn't do anything. And this year it got worse and worse and worse. And finally, he's obviously, everyone can finally tell what I've known since the middle of last year. He's no good. Now, even Pro Football Focus, Stephen A., had him 14th overall. Not this past season, the season before. And the season before that, middle of the pack quarterback, right? This year, 31st. He was 31 out of 32. 31 out of 32. He's not good. And the kind of stuff he needs to build himself back up, it's a lot. Stephen A., even if he can't do it in Philly. Oh, no, can't do it in Philly. What's all the reporting coming out of Philly? It's not that the Eagles are blameless. It's that Carson Wentz also deserves a big part of the blame. There's hero worship, reportedly, in the Philly Inquirer around Carson Wentz. He had a direct line to the owner, it has been reported, right? He has too much power in the organization. He split the locker room. A lot of guys don't want him there. And Stephen A., what about this? The day that Jalen Hurts is starting for the first time as a pro, we're hearing leaks in the media. Carson Wentz has no interest in being a backup. If so, he wants a trade. Who has interest in being a backup? What do you mean? Of course he doesn't have interest. Of course he wants to start. But you leak that day of your backup getting the start? He undermines the team on top of it? Of course you want him out of there.
Max Kellerman, you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you why the Eagles would be smart to keep Carson Wentz for the moment. Because of you. You, Max Kellerman, are the reason that they should keep him for now. Because nobody has served to devalue Carson Wentz more than you. If anybody out there is listening to you, they wouldn't want Carson Wentz for a bag of chips. You understand what I'm saying? So giving them away now doesn't work to their benefit. They'll get nothing in return, okay? You got to let that die down. You got to wait till Max Kellerman goes on vacation, him and all of his analytics crew and everybody else in between. You got to make sure they disappear for a little bit while. Let them wait till they go on vacation. Wait till they're getting off the air. Wait till they stop talking about Carson Wentz. Let them fade into the twilight just a little bit and then find the sucker to take them. That's what you got to do here. That's number one. Number two, Max Kellerman, in all seriousness. Let's take something else into consideration here. We can't just look at Carson Wentz. Do you understand that between the 50 that Carson Wentz suffered from, the 13 that Jalen Hurts suffered from, the 2 that Sudfeld suffered from, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line gave up 65 sacks last season. Do you realize that? 65 sacks. are on the books for the Philadelphia Eagles having surrendered that against their quarterback. So that's something to take into consideration, because if you're on suicide watch, how the hell can you throw the football? Then you got a running game with Boston Scott and Miles Sanders. Scott averaging 4.7 yards a carry. Miles Sanders averaging 5.3 yards a carry. How come you ain't giving the ball a run a little bit more? Particularly when Jalen Reagor, when Zach Ertz, when Goddard all missed at least 5 games, okay? And Deshaun Jackson only played in 5 games. So you were bereft of the necessary weapons, one could easily argue as well. There's a lot of things that went into the Eagles stinking up the joint on the offensive side of the ball the way that they did. And it wasn't simply the quarterback player Carson Wentz. It was a lot. He had an awful year, and we get all of that. You can't absolve him. But there's so much more that goes into that. When you combine that with all the noise that's been made about him and how he has been so flagrantly devalued, even though to some degree that is of his doing, it is also of the doing of people like you. The fact of the matter is, it might be in their best interest. And last point about this, Max, Jalen Hurts, I want to remind everybody of this. The brother's got wheels. He's a tremendous athlete, and he can run with the football. He ran for more yards in 5 games, or 4 games rather, than Carson Wentz ran in 12. We get that. But the flip side is this. He was 1-3 as a starter, and he only completed 52% of his passes, which was worse than Carson Wentz. So we talk about Jalen Hurts like, oh my God, he came in there looking like Dan Marino.
Yeah, they may have to draft another quarterback.
That's not the case.
Yep, they may have to draft another quarterback. It may be that was a bad idea to draft Hurts, but Wentz forced them into it with his play. And let me say this, Stephen A. I wouldn't be, well, first of all, the reason Wentz got sacked so much primarily because their pass block win rate on that Eagles offensive line was upper half of the league. The reason he got sacked so much, this is not Mahomes in the Super Bowl running for his life as soon as the ball is snapped, pressured constantly with only 4. This is Carson Wentz, who won't get rid of the ball. He held the ball way too long. His decision-making, his judgment was awful. He was like, everything with Carson Wentz was wrong.
Hurts was sacked 13 times in 4 games. He didn't do that.
He was a rookie. He's a rookie. And by the way, you're right, but the offense looked better with Hurts. And he's a rookie who doesn't know what he's doing yet. And it looked better with Jalen Hurts than Carson Wentz. And insofar so far as me or people like me in this case, are pulling the wagon in terms of Carson Wentz is no good, Stephen A., he brings that upon himself, not just with his play, because I wouldn't be as hard on him with his play, but when I see things like Jalen Hurts is going to start his first career game, and now it comes out Carson Wentz is talking about, I have no interest in being a backup.
That's low.
I see so much behavior that I find as undermining to the team. That were I another team looking at that, I'd be like, I don't know if I want that dude in the locker room.
Which is another reason why you got to hold on to him, because nobody's going to give up anything for him right now.
Yeah, low trade value at this point. It's true.
Carson Wentz has earned his low trade value this past season. He was 28th out of 33 qualified passers in QBR. But let's not forget, guys, back in 2017, he led the league in QBR. Look,
it was great.
Maybe a turnaround? We don't know.